It was 2 a.m., and I had just completed my first telemedicine visit of the day. Take note, first patient. My body was getting ready to go still and dormant from my 3 hours sitting. Conversation with client, and I needed some narrative rest. However, I strove to maintain professionalism because if I ever skipped a beat, as we so commonly say today, then I may lose my job. Now, I could finally rest. However, 15 minutes and then I will be back to the grind. Hi, I'm So, and I'm a medical sales rep. I also help clients on meds and with customer service as well as every other assistance needed of a techie. I closed my laptop and laid on the bed that I had put in here, in this office of mine, and my husband is already in our bedroom. As a result, sometimes I feel sorry for myself because my quite frankly amazing husband, Daniel Thomas Reed, with whom I am madly in love and adore more than any other human on the planet, kind of goes without saying, but let's just be clear, doesn't get to see me as much. But he gets it because he knows I am doing this for both of us. He is an engineer, has hectic and tiring kind of a job as well, but he always manages to give me quality time. This is why I love us. We are rests for each other. I felt my throat drying up and knew it would soon be sore. I heaved a deep sigh. I had not experienced that feeling in my neck for months. The stiffness of the neck, not just after a 10-hour night shift, but with some discomfort and not in it. But as ever, I did not think much of it. I care less of how my health is because I am busy trying to make something out our finances. But the soreness has slowly been transforming itself into pain, and it become chronic over time, which isn't too funny. I have a persistent, gravelly voice, and I feel it affects my job slightly. When I talk a lot, my throat gets dry, and on top of that you can hardly understand me because my voice got almost inaudible. Maybe the other person was facing it difficult to listen. I am always talking to my husband about how I feel, and he is constantly insisting that we go back into the hospital. But I am scared to find out what they are actually thinking. Or maybe I'm just jaded from working in medicine, but this one is probably still treatable. But also in the back of mind is, this too could be cancer, and I know it isn't. I would suffer, and the co-payments for what medical treatment I could afford with my mind as well have a major falling out. My family needs me. But for as unwilling I am to attend this ailment of mine, which will not die it seems, and is now a bothersome bastard dangling before me in the mirror on most days, taunting its own existence, he clearly wants me worried about him, because pretty goddamn often too, and how. Hence I sat down with one of the MD. I booked an appointment here fast. The next morning arrived and I woke up early to visit the hospital where we went there. Me waiting for my name is got displayed on screen in front all who pass through that chamber as patients come out days pack, which their turn takes about. I parked myself awaiting the results again following my array of tests. The nurse called me to repeat the message that she received from the doctor. I was fidgety, my hands clenched on the edge of chair in doctor room. The best, or worst, part of all this is I am 2 months away from knowing what or who exactly we are, and yet the sheer terror in asking leaves us silent. I am scared because I know this is way too away from the normal. Dr. Reynolds, a middle-aged male physician, stood there with concern evident in his eyes. My heart was pounding away. I'm so anxious. So I have your test results, he said softly. The lump in my throat expanded, beating against me with all 4 sets of limbs as my eyes flashed wide and hungry. What is it, doctor? What's wrong with me? Dr. Reynolds sharply exhaled, a sure sign of bad news on the horizon. Biker bod. Zoe confessed she nearly came off her bike when Tanya gave the details through telling So your pathology has come back, followed by that all of them had come up cancer. It's spread out everywhere between stages 3 and 4. Rugby league, football logo, sexism in advertising era, Ice Cube Sunday marketing, brand fashion, runway photographer, lizard sweatshirt, baby Jesus, Nintendo accelerometer, wind eject headphones, opera wig, drip squirrel, wine bottle, corset, jewel-ored horseshoe, timeless design, pop, introduce, apple, raft, playoffs, butterflies, go, window, nips, tux, frog, impress, bridesmaids, front, flip, big bang, birth, universe, pinball, festival, redux, rub, entrances, explanation, to pick, smiles, sand, volume, round, circle, spectator, whatsoever, bench, sink, mahogany, watching, penetrate into silk. Also, you have thyroid cancer. I went as white in the face, my eye misting. This is not real. My hands were shaking, I mean literally trembling. I'm so shocked. I thought it might be worse, but I never could have imagined that this level of hatred existed. Stage 4 thyroid cancer. How? How did this happen? I whispered to myself. Dr. Reynolds took my hand, an even taller man with these rascally eyes of pity. It may even be correlated with your work routine as a home-based medical representative. This is an exposure already. Asesoramiento. It sounds like your car was a silver Acura. Am I right to assume this is what you said? Your eyes locked on mine, fixated as if they paused time for just one of us while motion continued elsewhere. My head started spinning and suddenly protecting my family flashed in the back of my mind. I could never stop working. How will I look after them? I just feel like I am leading them both to pain. Suddenly, my eyes were watering up. Tears had started falling, and I just couldn't stop shaking. Doctor, what about my family? Oops. I don't want them to suffer. Can we keep this a secret? I could see the empathy in Dr. Reynolds' eyes and knew she had her reservations about my safety net as well. He heaved a deep sigh. So, I know you're nervous and it's hard to ask for help during this difficult time, but set on click listener, they can give you the emotional support that will be necessary for your forthcoming treatments. I hesitated. I fell into a bind in that I wanted to shield my family and also be able to obey what the doctor told me. Thank you for your concern, doctor, but what my husband doesn't know won't kill him. If only to not let him concerned or suffer the costs of it. Or should I tell somebody else? He nodded. Dr. Reynolds, regarding my petition, and the gravity of what I did was not lost on me. It started to sink in. I do not want my husband to feel overloaded. I don't want him to start stressing about me. What about our future? Commanded by I understand, so, if that's what you want then, remembering that sharing the weight can be a powerful form of strength. If you choose someone that you trust, then this quest will feel supported. I nodded, but I knew what my decision was. My husband will never get to know about this. Thank you, doctor. I believe there is a person whom I feel comfortable talking with. Dr. Reynolds just smiled at me in a conciliatory way, which told me he understood and respected my decision. So, I am here for you when you need support or to ask me questions. Don't hesitate to reach out. I caught a sorrowful glance from her. We both knew the road ahead. Not all women are so lucky to have a doctor as respectful, or good for that matter. After loving me for so many years, I know my health is the last thing he would ever want to hurt. I remember going home that day, my mind was racing. So many thoughts were there in my mind related to health, career, family, and expense. So since there is no one I'm on to talk with at the moment, I will tell Claire about it as she can help me, and hopefully King wants to. My living room, pacing to the rhythm of that piece of paper with my cancer diagnosis. We texted her vital information, and then I waited for the sniper. Inhaling deeply, I nervously picked up the phone to talk to my mother-in-law. She walked into the room, and she saw right through my sickness. The concern was evident in her eyes. So, is there something wrong? You seem anxious. Claire, there is something I must confess to you. You know what is vital, and I hope you recognize. That is until my mother-in-law plopped beside me. She heard the tone in my voice, so I knew she realized it was serious. Of course, Zoe. What is it? You can trust me. I gripped the paper of diagnosis and drew her eyes to it. She leveled a studious gaze on it. I was well aware of her curiosity. Then I went to the doc, and they found something. I have thyroid cancer, Claire. It is on the verge of its fourth phase, essentially. The Disraeli gasped, a hand flying over her mouth in shock. She wrapped me in her arms and gave me a squeeze. Oh my dear, I cannot believe it. How How did this happen? And then I started to cry and my throat got all thick. I'm not going to be 100% sure, but exposure of radiation in my job has probably had an effect. Especially you, there is something I need to talk about with Claire. I do not want to lay this news on David. He has a lot to do as is. I would be concerned about the dollar. Claire took me by the hand and gave me some words of comfort. So, I hear where you're coming from and will honor that. Trust me, I will be with you throughout this rough patch. I had tears of gratitude in my eyes. It was like a warm wave of release. My mother-in-law is the best. I was right in confiding everything with her. Thank you, Claire, for filling the role of my mom now that they are gone. I know that you are the one I can rely on. I've made a decision, though. But in 2 months, I will be undergoing chemo while acting like this is a company trip. My husband has enough to worry about or suspect. I do not want him worrying over what may be fiction. Claire gave me a sad but knowing look. That is what I wish she could help me with. She came to my rescue again and replied with a quiet voice. I sighed wearily, too tired of the deception to care. Then just promise me one thing. If it gets to be too much for you, rethink things and come clean against your husband. I nodded, tears flowing behind checks. I promise, Claire. I'm protecting them for now this way, but if it gets to be too much, I would absolutely share the truth. And she gave me a warm hug that was so comforting. We will get past this, gels. I got you every step of the day. Clutching one another within tightly, we both appreciating the difficult path that lies ahead. Then she said she would go home, and as soon as the door closed, I could see her smile, a bit oddly at me. Almost. What was the meaning of that? But I didn't mind it at all. 24 hours had passed since I shared with my mother-in-law. The couch made me nauseous from the anxiety as I watched my husband walk in the room. I was going to tell him about my pretend work trip, but he appeared withdrawn and refused to look at me. What is wrong? I approached him. David, can we talk? Reluctantly, my husband sighed and turned to me, his face a twisted confusion of anger with pain. What is it, so? I have been avoiding a crucial conversation all day. I was so shocked. And does he even know that I have a condition? There is no way he would. Tears welled up in my eyes while I struggled to form words. I'm so confused. What do you mean? He just chuckled. You're going to say that you have a work trip, right? I looked at her in utter astonishment. Shit, what if he'd said no? Okay, silence means yes. With the one you are cheating on, do you love him? You are lying to me? I didn't even know that you could lie. You are so cruel. I was so confused. Or did my mother-in-law betray us and lie? How dare she? Before you listen to the recording, I want you to know, it did not happen that way. It's a lie, David. Please believe me. My husband raised an eyebrow, obviously part mocking, and said, A lie? Well, that's a new one. What in the world could be so important that you would lie? And I remember breathing deep not to cry. Claire, I am telling you the true story of how, for some reason known only to God, your mother lied. One where my doctor and I were having an affair, another about me wanting to leave you. It's not true, David. I would never hurt you like that. The skepticism on my husband's face with eyes widened obviously shocked him. He gave me the look like I had said something so vile. My mother. What would possess her to do something like that? You're bad-mouthing her. How can you be this cruel to paint her as a villain when all she ever did was love and understand? You are the one that had an affair here. So I broke into tears, mad. How do you tell him everything without saying that I have cancer? Please, this is so hard. You don't understand. I hesitated with my voice shaking as I told her about the heart-wrenching betrayal of mother-in-law. Why is she so twisty in my words? I was loyal to you. I fucking love you, and now I am going to find out that you are cheating. How dare you? He knocked over the items on the bedside table. It made me jump and I actually gasped. That is not true. We're over. Let's have a divorce. That is final. And he left me alone. I broke down that night. I did not know what else to do. I tried my hardest to fix things between us. For 3 days, I contacted him to make things right with us, and he was always cold-shouldering me. I tried to get him to stay, and asked him if he would just hear me out, but his mind was so set on the fact that I had cheated. Again, I wasn't going to be able to change that at this point. I had to tackle my health, my relationship, and well, let's be frank here, being sold out by mother-in-law AONE. I checked in to the hospital and sought help through therapy as well as surgery. I was placed into chemo quarantine, so I stayed away from my husband and mother-in-law. I crushed my health and put every ounce of effort I had into trying to survive this disease. Each day, I kept telling myself that cancer was not going to take me down. I took the cue from doctors. I went to all the meds and therapy just for me, to improve myself/my health. It was like the realization I was a failed health enthusiast. Being in the hospital for almost a whole year aside, I managed to pay all my medical bills at no cost since we, from where I worked, were partnered with a different company that took care of me. Some expenses were paid by my employer. And I was fortunate because despite what had happened to me, there were still people who helped me and supported as I went through that season of my life. After 7 months, my gains could be measured. My body was able to fight the cancer cells, and in time my strength came back. 8 months later, I am cancer-free. My strength and resilience were praised by all in the hospital. So, they put me in a hospital with my laboral ways and history of medicine. Working as a medical technician at the hospital, I was still a king for the man I married, and our relationship had long since given up. It simply ran out of chances. His mind was already closed, which is why I have done my best to develop myself. Feeling as I am almost back to my pre-illness self, now it seems fitting for me to travel through uncharted territories again. I saved for a house through my job in the hospital. Moreover, even I bought a car. I am prospering financially, and personally, fast forward 3 years and I am a senior medical technician. This was the first milestone that opened many doors and changed lives. This is just a beginning of life changer. I helped to establish a center that helps the families of cancer victims by aiding and caring for them. I had on white lab coat, the samples of tests in my hand as I walked through the hospital. Just another day on the job. Or was it? My heart raced as I turned the corner into my mother-in-law Claire sitting in the waiting room. Memories of things and traumas from the past flooding back instantaneously. She looked, well, different than before. Her presence was deceptive and intimidating as it used to. She was a survivor. She worked in the medical field. Yet it looked as though cancer had never really left her aura, only replaced boisterous screams with muted whispers of pails and weakened words. With clouds of bitterness and even nostalgia rolling through my soul, I tentatively approached her. But she noticed me first. So, what are you doing here? I eventually did, and she examined me from head to toe, mind blown by what was in front of her. I snorted loudly, my speech exaggeratedly resolute. I work here now, Claire. I have moved on. I have rebuilt my life. She looked a bit surprised by my answer, her eyes growing wide. She then quickly reclaimed her formidable presence. Moved on from what exactly? Your fabricated affair. Oh, lass, your big idea is to ditch my son. She mocked me. The anger I felt ignite inside me was fought down and kept behind my composure. I responded calmly. Those were lies, Claire. All lies that you told to tear apart my family. We know the truth, and yet you still lied. But it didn't work. I survived. For a second, Claire hesitated, and the smug look was replaced with guilt. I did the best I thought for my son. I ventured out to my own defense, knowing by then I was not defending me but him against future hurt. The pain of her betrayal came back, but I tried not to dwell on it. And she could not control me. You hurt us with your misguided attempts at protection. What you did to me is unforgivable, and is something I will never forget. It was clear Claire felt both guilty and sad as she struggled for words. You will never have a family, your son too. And then I turned to leave her behind, before she could explain anything. Within the year, I discovered that she was on chemo for cancer. And when she was admitted in the hospital, poorly I told Flickr to my director himself about the traumatic flashback that I had because of her, then asked that young female doctor from above for remain his blood lab sit. And I wanted to let her know that my best revenge against all the terrible things she did to me is none other than being successful. My husband never once visited while she was in the hospital. And when I would go in her room to check vitals or change a dressing, all she did was bitch at me for no reason. She would make fun of me, still, even when she had a near-death suicide attempt, and then writing me out of her life. However, a few weeks later her cancerous stone became lethal and she was desperately in need of blood donors. But when we claimed ASAP on charges posted not more than 30 minutes earlier, I have the same blood type as her, which is AB. After she discovered, she begged me to be her blood donor. Claire was in a hospital bed, palming, weak, and she needed blood like *Sep23 Claire, Palmanaga Hospital bed. Blood compatibility, Liko from Papua, need blood. I crossed my arms over her and sighed with disgust, appalled at what she had done. So, please, I need a blood transfusion. Your blood type is AB. I am the other one that matches it. AB, please help me. Everything that hurt me every time I have been mishandled came flooding back and hesitated. I inhaled deeply, trying to muster the energy it would take for me to speak. For years you have treated me like shit, when fact is you have degraded me, gone around and told lies on my name and hurt feelings. And now you expect me to help. Tears rolled from Claire's eyes as regret became etched on her face. Look, I've screwed up things plenty of times, Zodiac. I cannot change my behavior, however desperate now. Please, I cannot stay alive without you. Although you have a heart of stone, I am not so cruel as to refuse the assistance that your condition demands. I hope you feel better, but don't think that when you're well this will be over for me and your son. I needed family support, but the wind was missing. I'm going to let you taste your own medicine. For me, I donated my blood and then suddenly cancer got disappeared in one night from the body of my mother-in-law. The next day, however, when she was released from the hospital, you better believe I signed those divorce papers. All the rights, properties, and assets were passed to me. They were left with nothing, and in that way, I believe I achieved my revenge.